The displacement of Palestinians is a tragedy that has been unfolding for generations. Families have been forced to flee their homes, leaving behind everything they've ever known, only to find themselves stuck in overcrowded refugee camps or struggling to survive in foreign lands. The casualty rates are equally alarming, with thousands of innocent civilians caught in the crossfire or targeted by military operations. And to make matters worse, access to basic necessities like food, water, and medical care is often severely restricted, pushing people to the brink of survival. The humanitarian situation only worsens when we look at the blockade of Gaza, which has crippled the regional economy and pushed a significant portion of the population below the poverty line. It's not uncommon to see families relying on international aid just to get by, with the threat of poverty, hunger, and desperation looming large over their lives. The situation is further complicated by the restrictions on movement, which have become a hallmark of the occupation. Palestinians are often forced to navigate labyrinthine bureaucracies just to secure permits to access their own land, attend school, or receive medical treatment. In the West Bank, the picture is no less grim. The settlements have been a major point of contention, with many seeing them as a clear violation of international law. As the settlements continue to expand, Palestinians are left with dwindling access to their own land, sparking protests, clashes, and further marginalization. And then, of course, there's the separation barrier, which has become a potent symbol of the occupation, dividing families, communities, and lands in its wake. The historical context of this conflict is complex and multifaceted. At its core, the Israel-Palestine conflict is a struggle over land, rights, and identity. It's a narrative that spans centuries, with competing claims to the land dating back to ancient times. The modern state of Israel was established in 1948, but the clash between Jewish and Arab populations dates back much further. The British Mandate period, the UN Partition Plan, and the subsequent wars have all contributed to the current state of affairs. From an Israeli perspective, the primary concern is security and the right to exist. Many Israelis see the establishment of their state as a necessary response to centuries of persecution, culminating in the horrors of the Holocaust. They argue that the occupation is a necessary evil, one that ensures the safety of their citizens in the face of relentless hostility from neighboring countries and militant groups. For many Israelis, the settlements are a necessary buffer zone, providing a strategic security advantage in a region where they feel profoundly vulnerable. On the other hand, Palestinians see themselves as the victims of a brutal occupation, one that has stripped them of their land, their rights, and their dignity. They argue that the establishment of Israel was predicated on the displacement and marginalization of Palestinians, and that the occupation is a denial of their fundamental human rights. For many Palestinians, the settlements are a blatant example of colonialism, a clear violation of international law that perpetuates their subjugation and erasure. A recent event that encapsulates the human suffering and urgency of addressing the situation is the Great March of Return. Since 2018, Palestinians have been gathering near the Gaza-Israel border, demanding the right to return to their ancestral lands and protesting the crippling blockade that has strangled their economy. The responses from Israeli forces have been brutal, with live ammunition used to quell the protests, resulting in the deaths and maiming of countless unarmed civilians. The desperation and frustration that drive these protests are palpable, and they serve as a stark reminder of the dire need for a peaceful resolution. The story of Aida Camp, a refugee camp in Bethlehem, is another powerful testimony to the human cost of this conflict. Established in 1950, the camp is home to over 6,000 Palestinians, many of whom have been displaced multiple times. The camp is a symbol of the Palestinian struggle, with residents living in cramped, makeshift conditions, often without access to basic services like electricity or running water. Their stories are a testament to the resilience and determination of the Palestinian people, but they also serve as a stark reminder of the urgent need for a lasting solution. In the face of such overwhelming human suffering, it's easy to feel powerless. But it's precisely this sense of powerlessness that we must resist. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex issue, but that complexity should not deter us from engaging with it, from educating ourselves, and from demanding action from our leaders. In conclusion, the Israel-Palestine conflict is a humanitarian crisis that demands our attention, our empathy, and our action. It's a crisis that has been decades in the making, but one that requires an urgent response. By understanding the historical context, the political dynamics, and the human cost of this conflict, we can begin to build a more just and equitable future for all.